The army camp was unusually silent that night. Only the distant whistling wind and the rhythmic tapping of boots against the concrete floors could be heard. The tall floodlights surrounding the parade ground were dimmed, casting long, wavering shadows. Most of the soldiers were asleep, exhausted after a long day of training and duties. Yet, in a small office near the parade ground, one man was wide awake. He was a CID officer, experienced and meticulous, with eyes that had seen more deception than truth. His gaze was fixed on a steel cupboard tucked into the corner of the room. The cupboard had not been opened for years, and dust covered every inch of its surface. Inside, it held a file that had long been forgotten, or so it seemed. On the cover of the thick, yellowed file, a single line was written in bold red ink. Case closed. The case was officially closed 7 years ago. Army records claimed it was an accident. A young soldier, Ravi, had died during night duty. The investigation concluded quickly, blaming a fellow soldier for negligence. No one asked questions beyond the surface. But the CID officer knew better. Not all cases that are closed are truly solved. He opened the cupboard slowly, the hinges groaning. Dust swirled into the air and he coughed lightly. Pulling out the file, he placed it on the table, his fingers tracing the red letters once more. Case closed. The weight of the words felt heavier than they should. The incident had shocked the unit 7 years ago. Ravi was a young recruit, quiet, disciplined, hardworking. That night, after the routine roll call, Ravi's bed was found empty in the morning. Initially, officers assumed he had left without permission. Search teams scoured the camp, but hours passed without any sign of him. Eventually, his body was discovered near the training ground. The official report stated he had slipped in the dark and died accidentally. The soldier blamed for negligence, Eamon faced punishment. His promising career abruptly ended. The case was declared closed, neatly tied up on paper. But as the CID officer flipped through the pages, he noticed something troubling. There were no lingering questions, no unresolved details, no uncertainty. Real accidents leave traces of doubt. This file was unnervingly complete. Paused on Ravi's last handwritten note. I need to report something important. That was all. No names, no explanation, no details. And then one page was missing. Someone had removed it. This was no ordinary case. It was a cover-up. The officer stood and walked to the window. Outside, the camp looked serene, almost peaceful. But within its walls, a truth had been buried, and someone powerful had ensured it remained hidden. A sudden knock on the office door pulled him from his thoughts. A young guard peeked inside. "Sir, everything okay?" "Checking old records," the officer replied, closing the file slightly. The guard left, and the officer opened the file again. His eyes scanned the pages. Photographs, statements, duty charts. Everything seemed in order, yet the smallest details did not add up. Ravi had no official night duty that day. Why, then? Had he been near the training ground at midnight? The official report offered no explanation. Recalling the day he had first reviewed this case as a junior officer, he remembered the sense of unease it left him. At the time, he had noted the absence of any confusion or missing information, an unusual characteristic for an accident. Now, years later, the feeling returned stronger than ever. He knew one thing: the wrong man had been punished, and the truth had been buried deliberately. Determined to uncover it, he decided to revisit the old barracks and speak to the soldiers who had served there during the incident. As he walked through the familiar corridors, he noticed how the walls remained unchanged while the faces had shifted. Time had moved on, but the truth had not. One young soldier stepped forward cautiously. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Sir, some cases shouldn't be reopened." "Why?" asked the officer, his tone calm but firm. "Because." "This case was never an accident," the soldier said, eyes downcast. The officer felt the weight of that admission. That night, he returned to his office and wrote a single line in his personal diary: reopen the case, no matter the cost. For this Army case, official records might have declared it closed. But the truth was still very much alive, and it demanded to be heard. 7 years earlier, the Army camp was alive with activity. The clang of metal from drills, the disciplined shouts of instructors, and the constant movement of soldiers created a rhythm of order. New recruits were learning the basics of soldiering, while senior officers oversaw the operations with sharp, watchful eyes. Everything seemed perfect on the surface, disciplined, organized, efficient. Among the new soldiers was Ravi, a young man barely out of training school. He was quiet and diligent, always following orders and never causing trouble. His seniors trusted him, and his peers respected him. On the day of the incident, Ravi completed his evening duties precisely on time. According to the records, he had no night duty assigned. After dinner, he retreated to his small barracks, scribbling something in a diary he always carried. One of his friends later recalled that Ravi looked troubled. When asked what was wrong, Ravi had only said, "I saw something, I need to report it." He refused to give more details. That night, the routine midnight roll call occurred. Ravi answered his name. It was the last time anyone saw him alive. By morning, his bed was empty. At first, officers assumed he had left without permission. The camp erupted into a tense search operation. Teams combed the training ground, storage areas, and nearby paths. Hours passed, yet Ravi was nowhere to be found. By evening, his body was discovered near the old obstacle course, a dim, isolated area where shadows seemed permanent. The official report labeled the death an accident. Ravi had slipped and fallen. To ensure quick closure, a soldier named Aman, who was on duty near the training ground that night, was blamed. Aman was young, nervous, and lacked influence within the unit. Despite his protests, his career was abruptly terminated, and his promotion canceled. "I did not do anything wrong," he kept saying, but his words fell on deaf ears. The file was closed, neat and decisive. Back in the present, the CID officer sat across Aman in a small interrogation room. Aman was no longer in uniform. The years had left their mark. His face was tired, his eyes haunted by the past. "I was framed," Aman said slowly, his voice thick with emotion. They needed someone to blame. The CID officer listened in silence, letting Aman speak. That night, Aman continued, "I heard footsteps near the training ground. I went to check, and I saw Ravi speaking to someone." The officer leaned forward. "Who?" Aman shook his head. It was dark. "I couldn't see the face clearly, but the voice. It sounded like an officer." Ravi looked scared, kept saying, "Sir, please listen." Then someone shouted, and after that, silence. Aman's hands trembled slightly. "I was ordered to leave the area. By morning, he was dead." The CID officer rechecked old duty charts. Aman's account revealed gaps that were ignored at the time. Some soldiers had changed statements. Times on duty logs did not match. And one senior officer's statement contradicted phone records showing movement near the training ground. It became clear Ravi had not died by accident. He had seen something he shouldn't have, and someone had silenced him. The officer revisited the training ground. The site where Ravi's body was discovered was isolated, perfect for hiding secrets. As he searched, his fingers brushed something small beneath the soil. It was an old, broken uniform button, not Ravi's, but clearly from an officer's uniform. The officer wrote in his notes, "This was not negligence. This was deliberate. A cover-up." Pressure mounted. CID headquarters warned him repeatedly, "This case is sensitive. Do not dig too deep." But the officer remembered Aman's face, an innocent man punished for another's crime. That memory fueled his resolve. Before leaving the camp, the officer received an anonymous message. "Check the officer above suspicion." In the Army, some officers were untouchable, respected, and protected. But the CID officer did not rely on rank or reputation. He relied on facts. The investigation had just taken a turn. That night, he returned to his office. On the desk lay the reopened file. He spread out photographs, statements, and duty charts, comparing every detail. The broken button, the missing page, the unexplained absence of Ravi's diary entries, they all pointed to one conclusion. Someone high up had orchestrated the cover-up. CID had begun to unravel the truth. And for the first time in 7 years, Aman's voice was not just heard, it was believed. The officer knew one thing clearly. Reopening this case would not only uncover the past, it would challenge the system itself. The CID officer did not sleep that night. The message kept echoing in his mind. Check the officer above suspicion. In an army where some officers were revered and seemingly untouchable, such instructions were terrifying. Yet the officer had one guiding principle. Facts came before fear. Respect or rank could not hide the truth. The next morning, he requested the list of senior officers stationed at the camp during Ravi's death 7 years ago. One name stood out immediately: Colonel Verma. At the time, he'd been second in command of the unit, known for his strict discipline and seemingly flawless record. Everyone trusted him. Everyone respected him. The officer began by re-examining Colonel Verma's old statements. Verma claimed he had remained in his quarters all night. The signed statement was calm and composed. But phone records told a different story: activity near the training ground during the hours of Ravi's disappearance. The discrepancy had been overlooked in the past. Determined, the CID officer arranged a meeting with Colonel Verma. The room was sterile and quiet. Colonel Verma entered, radiating authority and calm, as though nothing in the past 7 years had shaken him. "Why reopen an old case?" he asked politely, though his eyes flickered with suspicion. "It was an accident." The CID officer remained composed. "Some details were overlooked, sir. We need to be thorough." Verma leaned back, his voice firm. "CID should respect Army decisions. This case was closed by command. The message was clear: drop it." But the officer had already seen the signs of a deeper deception. He began a meticulous review: duty registers, movement logs, and phone records. One page in the duty register had been replaced. The ink was newer, almost deliberately altered. A missing rifle had been reported that night, only for the report to be quietly withdrawn later. Every detail hinted at intentional manipulation. The CID officer then visited the camp's old CCTV room. Most footage had been deleted after a year, as per routine protocol. But one hard drive remained, unlabeled and unexamined. "This file is restricted," said the technician hesitantly. The officer displayed his credentials. The footage played. Most screens were black or corrupted, but one camera near the training ground revealed movement. 2 figures appeared: Ravi and a taller individual wearing an officer's cap. The face was obscured, but the posture was unmistakable. The officer froze. He had seen that posture before: authoritative, deliberate, commanding. Pressure intensified. CID headquarters issued warnings. "This case is sensitive. Do not disturb senior officers." The officer walked alone near the parade ground that night, replaying Ravi's final words in his mind: "I need to report something important." The young soldier had approached the wrong officer, unknowingly stepping into danger. Fear permeated the camp. Soldiers whispered about orders from the top. Finally, a junior soldier broke the silence. "Sir, orders came from above," he whispered. It was clear now this was not a mere accident, nor a simple cover-up. The system was protecting itself. The officer focused on Colonel Verma's personal locker. One entry was missing, the date corresponding to the night Ravi had died. Permission to search the locker was delayed, then outright denied. The denial spoke volumes. The CID officer officially reopened the case. The file, once marked "Case Closed," now bore a new stamp: "Case Reopened." Colonel Verma was summoned again. This time the officer presented evidence: phone logs, the gap in duty registers, and the CCTV image of the tall figure near Ravi. Verma's confident demeanor faltered. He was silent, but he still denied wrongdoing. The officer placed one final piece of evidence on the table: a broken uniform button recovered from the site where Ravi's body had been found. It matched the officer's uniform. Verma's eyes widened. "I followed orders," Verma finally admitted, his voice trembling. "Whose orders?" the CID officer demanded. Verma did not respond. Silence filled the room. That night, the officer wrote in his notes, "The truth is close. Colonel Verma is not alone." As he left the office, a junior CID officer ran toward him. "Sir, we found something. A confidential report. It was never filed." The CID officer took the file in his hands. On the first page was a single line in red ink: "Restricted. Not for records." He opened it carefully. The words inside made his face pale. The CID officer held the confidential report with trembling hands. This was no ordinary file. It had no official stamps, no record number, no authorization. Only a single line was written at the top: "Restricted. Not for records." The report was dated the night Ravi died 7 years ago. The officer began reading, each word pulling him deeper into a truth long buried. It described a secret internal operation within the camp, a covert nighttime activity involving the movement of weapons. The operation had not been approved by higher command. Only a select few officers were aware of it. One name appeared repeatedly: Colonel Verma. The report revealed that this operation required moving weapon crates silently under the cover of darkness. No duty charts recorded the event. No written orders existed. The operation's secrecy was paramount. If discovered, it could ruin careers and prompt court-martials. Ravi, on his routine duty, had stumbled upon the operation. Trained to report suspicious activity, he had acted correctly. He approached a senior officer, asking questions to many questions. The report suggested an argument had broken out during the operation. Voices were raised, tempers flared, and someone made a critical mistake. The lines describing the final moments were partially blacked out. Still, the meaning was chilling. Ravi had been silenced. His curiosity, his adherence to duty, had cost him his life. Anger surged through the CID officer. An innocent soldier had died while another had been framed to shield the guilty. He reviewed the report again, the broken uniform button, the missing duty logs, and the unfiled statements all pointed to a cover-up executed with precision. Determined, the officer gathered his team. This was no longer just a murder investigation. It was a case of abuse of power and deliberate concealment of facts. The CID team returned to the training ground, searching deeper than before. Behind an old shed, partially hidden under soil, they discovered a metal box. Inside were old weapon tags, matching the batch numbers mentioned in the confidential report. Every detail corroborated what Ravi had seen that night. The officer knew they had enough evidence to arrest Colonel Verma, but before any action could be taken, a call came from headquarters. A senior voice said curtly, "Stop the investigation. This matter involves national security." The CID officer remained calm. "National security does not justify killing an innocent soldier," he replied. That night, Colonel Verma attempted to leave the camp. CID intercepted his vehicle and brought him in for questioning. He looked weary, his confidence eroded. The officer placed the confidential report on the table in front of him. Verma's face paled. "This file, it should not exist," he whispered. "It does," said the CID officer firmly, "and so does the truth." Colonel Verma confessed partially. "It was never meant to happen," he said. "It was just an operation. Ravi saw too much." The officer asked about Eamon. Why was he punished? Verma's head lowered. Needed a quick closure. It was easier to blame him than investigate further. The weight of the revelation was enormous. The system had sacrificed two innocent lives, one physically, one professionally, to protect its own. Before the confession could continue, the power went out. The interrogation room was plunged into darkness. Moments later, the lights returned, and Colonel Verma was gone. The guard was unconscious, slumped to the floor. Alarm sirens blared through the camp. The CID officer knew immediately. Verma had not acted alone. Someone within the system had facilitated his escape. As the officer coordinated search teams, another message appeared, this time longer, more ominous. "If the truth comes out, the system will fall." The officer read it silently, then whispered to himself, then let it fall. The army camp was in chaos. Sirens echoed through the night. Searchlights swept across every corner and gates were sealed. Colonel Verma had escaped. For the CID officer, this was not only a matter of losing a suspect, it meant someone inside the system was helping him. CID teams were deployed across the city and surrounding roads. Vehicles were stopped, identification verified, and checkpoints manned. Yet, despite the massive search, Colonel Verma had vanished without a trace. Returning to the interrogation room, the officer found the guard slowly regaining consciousness. "I felt dizzy," the guard murmured. "Someone gave me water. I don't remember anything else." The officer knew immediately. This had been a carefully planned escape. It was no accident. He reviewed the CCTV footage again. One camera had been deliberately turned away for 5 minutes during the exact time of Verma's exit. Access logs revealed only 2 people had clearance to manipulate that camera. Colonel Verma and another officer, someone very senior. The scale of the conspiracy was larger than he had imagined. Determined to catch the mastermind, the CID officer devised a trap. False information was leaked within a small, controlled circle. The confidential report would be sent to headquarters the next morning. Only one person reacted with panic. That very night, the officer received a call from a blocked number. The voice was cold, authoritative. "You are making a big mistake. Drop this case now." The CID officer responded calmly, his voice steady. "The case is already open. Truth cannot be stopped." Using triangulation, CID traced the call to an old guest house on the outskirts of the city. Teams moved swiftly. Inside, they found Colonel Verma tired, anxious, and cornered. He made no attempt to resist arrest. During questioning, Verma finally spoke. "I did not plan the killing," he admitted. "I was told to handle it." Orders came from above. The CID officer placed another file on the table, one containing names of officers higher than Verma. The weight of the information caused Verma to go pale. "You know everything," he whispered. Verma then signed a full confession. He described the secret operation, the movement of weapons, the confrontation with Ravi, and the resulting cover-up. He revealed the truth about Eamon's punishment, a calculated act to provide closure and hide the system's mistakes. The CID officer realized the magnitude of what they had uncovered. This was not just a single cover-up. This was a network of silence, stretching to the highest echelons of command. Before CID could act further, the pressure intensified. News had leaked, and orders came again. Stop now, or face consequences. The CID officer met Eamon once more. The young man, now older and haunted by 7 years of injustice, asked quietly, "Sir, will my name ever be cleared?" "Yes," replied the CID officer. "All the evidence points to your innocence. Your truth will come out." CID prepared the final report, assembling every piece of evidence, duty charts, CCTV footage, confidential reports, and Verma's confession. Nothing was hidden. Every fact matched, every lie exposed. That night, as he wrote in his diary, the officer penned one line. "Truth is ready to speak." Before sunrise, an unexpected event occurred. Colonel Verma collapsed in his cell. Medical personnel rushed in. He was alive, but barely conscious. The officer realized with certainty that someone powerful still wanted the case buried. Despite this, the CID officer remained resolute. He knew that uncovering the full truth meant challenging not only one man, but an entire system built to protect itself. And he would not stop. The morning sun rose over the army camp, painting the parade ground in pale gold. The camp was quiet, but the tension remained. The CID officer knew that today could change everything. Colonel Verma was still unconscious in the hospital, but the confession he had given the previous night, combined with the evidence in the confidential report, was enough to act. The duty logs, the CCTV footage, the broken button all pointed to the same truth. The officer called Eamon to his office. Eamon entered nervously, a man weighed down by 7 years of fear, shame, and unjust punishment. The CID officer placed the reopened case file before him. "This is your truth," he said quietly. "You are innocent. The real story is here." Eamon's hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. Tears formed in his eyes. "It's finally over," he whispered. "Yes," replied the officer, "but the system must now answer for trying to hide it." Next, the CID officer compiled all evidence for submission to Army headquarters. The duty charts, the CCTV footage, confidential reports, and Colonel Verma's detailed confession. Every piece corroborated the others, leaving no room for doubt. It became clear to everyone involved. Ravi did not die by accident. He had been silenced because he had witnessed a secret army operation. Orders had come from higher-ups. Eamon had been framed to cover the real mistake. Colonel Verma, once a respected figure, had merely followed instructions that cost a young soldier his life. Army headquarters had no choice but to act. A court-martial was announced for all officers involved. Colonel Verma, even unconscious, was officially taken into custody. Investigations into higher-ranking officers began immediately. Outside the camp, soldiers whispered in disbelief. How could the system they trusted have attempted to hide such a truth? The CID officer knew the answers were painful, but necessary. Justice demanded transparency, even when the truth was uncomfortable. Eamon's record was restored, his name cleared. returned to service with renewed respect. The camp held a small ceremony to honor Ravi's memory. His courage and integrity were finally recognized, and his family received official acknowledgement for his sacrifice. The CID officer walked alone through the camp, past the parade ground, and toward the training area where Ravi had died. Everything appeared the same: the walls, the barracks, even the trees, but to him nothing felt unchanged. He had seen how power could manipulate, hide, and punish. He had seen how innocence could suffer silently, but he had also seen that persistence, courage, and truth could prevail. He stood at the exact spot where Ravi had fallen. In his mind, he heard the young soldier's last words, "I need to report something important." Those words had cost Ravi his life, yet they had also sparked justice, clearing an innocent man and exposing a dangerous cover-up. The CID officer realized that truth, no matter how deeply buried, has a way of resurfacing. As he turned to leave, he glanced once more at the training ground. Some cases may be closed, some files may be hidden, but truth always comes out. With that, the CID officer walked away, carrying the knowledge that courage, integrity, and diligence had brought justice where it had long been denied. 7 years of silence had ended, and the army had been reminded that even the most powerful system cannot bury truth forever.